Is it 6:30? It is.
It is.
Yeah, we're good.
I will call this meeting to order at 6:30, and we will go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. Before we get started here, I will entertain a motion to approve or amend tonight's agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda, but, I don't know how to say this, but removing two items, which would be the personnel report and, I'm trying to find it here.
You can do that separately when we get to the consent
Oh,
agenda.
am I not there yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, any discussion? Or was there a second? I don't need a second. Yes, that's right. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Are there any public comments? Great. Okay, we are now at the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve or amend our consent agenda.
Okay. I move that we approve the consent agenda, removing the personnel report, or the personnel,
That's right.
yeah, and the NMEA TPEP MOU to be voted on separately.
Gotcha. Is there any discussion on the remaining items in the consent agenda? Let me see if I had any. I had a question. The EFT policy, the electronic funds transfer. What is different about it than, what are we even changing? It looked, or is it wholly new?
It's wholly new. See, it's all red.
Yeah, that's what it's all red. Okay, gotcha. That seemed very standard to me, so I don't have questions on that. And then policy 6550, which was the capitalization threshold. This that highlighted part where it's just XXXXX, was that supposed to have numbers in it?
It didn't get uploaded right. It's $50,000.
Okay, or what percentage?
It's just $50,000.
It's just 50,000.
Okay. Okay, do we need to, or?
Yeah, we need to note that that is the amount in there because it didn't get uploaded correctly.
Okay.
But it will before, once it is approved at
Okay.
that level.
That sounds good. And then I am curious, I think that was it for my questions on the consent agenda specifically, so.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
The school fees, have those increased? I couldn't really tell from the list here.
No.
They're the same?
Yes.
So
Okay.
yearbook fees have gone down a little bit, but nothing has gone up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor of the consent agenda as modified? Signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries, all in favor. So we have the personnel report, which does include recommending Eric Young here, school board member, onto our coaching personnel team. So we will ask Eric to recuse himself from that vote. Is there any discussion or commentary on the personnel report from our other board members?
I would just like to say that I do support Eric Young.
That seems in order to me.
He seems very excited.
Yeah.
So I would entertain a motion, actually, to approve the personnel report.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve the personnel report.
Okay. Now any discussion? I assume no. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. And now we have the NMEA TPEP MOU, which I will recuse myself from. And so I will let Eric take over the section.
So, is there a motion to approve? Let me get back to the NMEA TPEP MOU.
So moved.
Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor of approving the NMEA TPEP MOU?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we're at the fun part of our evening. We've got a lot of presentations, so technology presentation.
Yes, as you know, we ask each department or building to bring you an update every year, and here in September, Clint Forsythe is here to talk about the state of technology in our district as of today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Our state of technology is we've increased our computers district-wide. We're now 1-to-1, which more computers is increased support for those computers.
1-to-1 meaning,
One computer per student.
wow.
So-
We were not one-to-one before.
Well, we were
Close.
close. We finally made it there this year. So we've implemented some new communication platforms for the community and parents, and we're still got some aging infrastructure that we need to replace. This year we added 1,250. We didn't add 1,250. We replaced 850 and added a few hundred more. Total of 1,250 district-wide, which kept us real busy over the summer. We were able to lower our deployment time. We leveraged Dell and Microsoft technology called Autopilot, and our daily service requests have increased, not in a significant amount. We're still working with 3 full-time technology support specialists for the whole district. Our communications, we enhanced our platforms. We moved away from Remind and Blackboard Messenger, and we went with a company, the platform called Parent Square, which encompassed both of those technologies for daily announcements for absences and low lunch balances if we ever do that again. Also, community engagement, keep parents informed of their students' progress daily or weekly, however the teacher decides to use the platform. We implemented a new website that came with a district app. Has a lot of functionality. You can look up menus and anything you need to see on our website for information. We installed devices called RedCat, which are audio enhancement speakers that go in the classroom. They have a microphone so that the teacher can speak into it, and the speakers in the back of the classroom to help students in the back of the class hear instruction. And that was at the elementary level. We have them in the middle school and the high school. Those were installed during the renovation and construction of the high school. Also a text polling app called Possip, where Dana can text, I think it's once a month?
So what we do is we actually partner with Possip. We don't own the data, so they text our community that have agreed to receive their texts twice a month, asking 2 questions that they ask continually. Are you happy with your child's school? Name inserted of the school. Do you have praise or feedback to share with us? And if you want us to be able to talk to you directly, do you want us to tell the school who you are to go with your comments? And then we're allowed, with each pulse check, they're called pulse checks, we're allowed with each pulse check to ask one question. So if I can ask one at the district level and add it to the pulse check, or a building can ask one. So like, I write one and a building writes one, only the building one goes out. They only get one extra question. And they go out on Wednesday, and we have done 2 now. We did one on 2 weeks ago and one yesterday, and we're guaranteed to get our results back within 2 days, and we are getting them back by Thursday at noon, and with a lot of information. So we know, for example, that now over the 2 pulse checks that we've done, we have had, between the 2 of them, 507 different parents respond.
Wow.
And that we have very specific praise and feedback for each of our buildings that are receiving the information. We have the pulse checks. There's a national target of wanting to have 70. When they ask the question, "Are you happy with your child's school?" your answer choices are yes, mostly, or no. So the national targets are 78% and yes, and 14% mostly, and 8% no. And 3 of our schools have both times, or at least by the second time, been well above that national norm. One is really close, and one is moving back further in that direction. So we're seeing really good results. What is really nice is the tool gets feedback. It also provides the principal who gets the report with suggestions on ways they can talk to people or send a text or an email to the parent or about individual issues, or communicate with their whole community. It gives them a script that they can send out in response to each pulse check. And it gives them research on how to address any specific concerns that might be highlighted by the pulse check. So it's a really good support tool to help the principals communicate more effectively with their school community.
And we've had a lot of people want to do it, so it's really good to see.
See, but that sounds great. I mean, really keeping, it would be more difficult to say we don't pay attention. Of course, it depends on the response, our response, but that seems to me a really fine way of reaching out to the community.
So here we have our one-to-one, one device to one student. We distributed 850 computers on a replacement cycle with the ECF funding. That was, I think, the last part of the COVID relief. We also replaced 120 computers at the middle school. We started using the Microsoft Autopilot. We also installed a resource management inventory system to track all these computers, and implemented Class Policy, which is a classroom management software for teachers, so they can view all their students on their screen and see if anybody's not following direction, or if they want to push out a website to go to all the kids in the class. So it kind of helps them keep on task.
Could you talk a little bit about the Microsoft Autopilot?
So what that is it's not pre-installed, but so a student will get to the computer. Actually, we receive the computer and we hand the computer out without even turning it on. The student will log in with their name, their username, password. It will find them in our cloud directory and go, oh, you're a part of this school district. These are the applications that I need to download, and it does it all right when they log into the computer.
I see.
Versus having a tech
Setting it up.
setting it all up, which
right.
takes a lot of time.
And manpower,
A lot of
yeah,
manpower.
yeah.
So we've
Okay.
tried to leverage that so that it's just happening at one person versus.
Right. Good.
Does that go for the stuff you're supposed to, you take something home from school? I mean, would that just arrive at the parents?
Well, we distribute the computers at the school, and then they could take it home and log in, and they could download all that at home.
So do they get them at the elementary school too, like kindergartners
Yes.
get them?
Yep, even in pre-K.
Okay.
We are still facing some aging infrastructure, our network switches, our battery backups, security cameras, and the projectors at the elementary. We're just been replacing them on a one-to-one basis as they die. They're about 15 to 20 years old. This past summer, we did replace all of the Wi-Fi access points and got them. We figured we needed more access points throughout the building, the more computers we had in the classroom. So,
The security cameras, would those all be at the entrances to the school?
so
or-
that they're actually mainly on the upper campus. We only have a handful at the elementaries,
Okay.
but they're getting to be about 10 years old as well.
Okay.
And we do have some that are just they've failed and.
Oh.
So like whereabouts are they in the high school? Like what types of areas?
Our parking lot out front in the high school is a big, there's just no cameras that work out there. And then there's just like a handful of interior ones. I would say probably 6 district-wide that aren't functioning currently. And we have 88
Yeah.
total, so.
And they're but like the 88 total, where are they? Just in hallways?
Oh, yeah, hallway, they're all in the hallways.
They're not in
there's perimeter.
classrooms.
No, there's not in.
And they're not in bathrooms.
No,
Okay.
they're just in community areas where.
Common areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and then you're going to be meeting with your continuing meeting with your technology committee and with finance director to look at what pieces of this we can take a bite out of this year.
And how we can fund it and finding funding sources. And,
Yeah.
I know that in this coming June, there will be a grant for security cameras, so we're going to work on doing that and so forth, so.
Okay.
The future, we're looking beyond this year. Everybody knows about cybersecurity. We'd like to implement multi-factor authentication for staff at least. We have done, the ESD has made us do some through their programs. So we're kind of moving that way within the district. My staff and I already use multi-factor authentication for email and different websites just to try and pilot it so we know what to expect when we push it to the masses. We'd like to see to hire some more staff to help with ongoing troubles at the buildings. Ideally, we'd like to have a technician at each building. I think it is necessary with all the new computers, and I know we've had some problems trying to keep up with repairs and whatnot, so I think that we could benefit from that.
How many technicians do you have now?
3.
Right. Okay.
And then move more of our servers into the cloud and leverage the multi-factor authentication.
What MFA stuff are you looking at?
Mainly just for the Microsoft stuff, Outlook. We get a lot of phishing.
No, I'm more looking at like what type of authenticators are you guys?
Yeah, like a mobile authenticator. That's
Just an
what we've
app on
been
a phone.
testing, yeah.
Like
App on a
Google
phone.
Yeah.
Authenticator or, okay.
Yeah, and we're using Duo and Microsoft Authenticator.
Do some of the teachers have MFA already or no?
Not teachers,
Okay.
unless they've set it up on their own.
I feel like I thought that Garrett had something because when he got a new phone, there was that issue when you're like, oh gosh, I gotta have my, but I may be thinking of something else. Oh.
Yeah, we haven't rolled it out to teachers
Okay,
yet.
okay.
We do have a little growth strategy here. We're trying to explore new funding opportunities We are going to apply for E-rate funding and continue to build out our cloud network in Azure. We've hired a consultant to help us do that. Actually, even hired that. It's a free service through Microsoft called Fast Track. So we've tried to leverage that as much as we can. Again, like to hire some new positions, possibly at least one more tech and possibly a IT security, cybersecurity type position. And then hardware replacements of the cameras, the switches, projectors. And this has been on probably the last 3 or 4 of my presentations, moving skyward to cumulative.
Phase 3.
It's still kind of in the future, so. And yeah, I think that student success relies directly on the technology in their hands, so that's all. Thank you. Yes?
We have had trouble getting I'm glad to hear that we got computers for kids. Is there any way for them to use them?
Yeah, most of our curriculum now is online.
The connectivity.
Well, that's still a challenge.
Connectivity in the community has improved. We're down from 25% who don't have access to just under 15%, or at least adequate access.
Yeah.
We are working as part of a regional work, actually, that Ted Jackson and the United Way are leading to find some more funding for rural communities like ours for connectivity. And actually, I have a call scheduled with Derek Kilmer's office to talk about ways that they could work some legislation that would better support communities like ours than what is currently running through the feds, because a lot of the focus on connectivity does not address the needs of rural communities. And even ones like ours that are only a few miles as the crow flies from some of the biggest tech centers in the world. So hopefully we will use all of those partners to help us get more access.
Gee, I think that's very encouraging, and it sounds a lot like a step ahead. That's really great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Clint.
Thanks. I did want to touch on another part of my job. I'm also overseeing safety and security. We did hire 2 safety officers at the end of last school year, and we have been leveraging them throughout the district a lot. And I think it's good for our campuses. And we've also just installed cameras at the front of Hawkins and the high school, so now they'll have to ring a buzzard to get into the buildings versus it having wide open. So
That's Hawkins and North Mason.
yeah, the high school and the
We
middle
had that at the
school.
elementaries.
We had them at the elementaries, but not at the
I saw that today.
other 2 schools. So
When did that go up?
just this week we've had their being
That's
installed.
cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Clint.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clint.
Thank you,
Thanks
Clint.
very much. And good job.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm also very excited to welcome Lexi Hadfield and Kim Walters to talk to you about our CTE 5-year plan and our high school and beyond plan that we're working on.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, this is Kim Walters. She is currently doing her CTE Administrator Director internship. So where I go, she goes. And one of the big pushes in CTE, especially at the beginning of the year, is sharing our 5-year plan. It's long. So I'm going to kind of give a brief overview of every chunk of our plan. And our big one is educator licensing. And North Mason, like so many other smaller school districts, many of our CTE educators are on what we call conditional certifications. So some of them are certified teachers and they went through a traditional teacher pipeline, but are getting the additional CTE certification and they have to go through training for that. We have a couple that should finish this year. And we have a couple other teachers that are what we call straight from industry. So they do an alternative teaching route and go through and get their CTE teacher certification, and that involves some other teacher type classes too. So my goal is by 2028 that all of our teachers are off conditional and are fully certified. And then what's more unique about our CTE teachers is they have to maintain current CPR first aid certifications and then any certifications within their industry. So we keep those current as they need to be renewed.
What does PGP stand for?
Professional growth plan. So if a teacher is on conditional, that's their plan to me and how they're going to earn and complete their conditional certificate or teaching certification, so they're off conditional.
And how many CTE teachers do we have?
At North Mason High School, we have 8. There are 4 at Hawkins Middle School, and I have 1 at James Taylor and Home Lake.
And then how many of those are the conditional?
1, 4,
Okay.
5. Sorry, 5.
Out of the 13. Okay, cool.
Jackie, if you want to go to the next one. Okay, so we reevaluate our curriculum every year with our industry partners. We have 3 meetings a year, and I'll discuss that in a little bit later. But we review our curriculum, we make sure they are aligned with both the academic standards and the industry standards, and then we adjust that as needed. So when our OSPI rolls out new standards, we go back, we review our frameworks, and we change them all to make sure that they're matching and are being taught correctly. Right now, we have added health science for this year, and we are looking at adding additional courses into next year, and then hopefully transitioning our agriculture program into a natural resources pathway. So hopefully we'll start adding natural resources by the 24-25 school year. Then by 2026, everyone grades 7 through 12 will be using New Science, our new high school and beyond platform with Fidelity. So academic integration, it's a lot of the same stuff. Our big push this year is our high school and beyond plan platform, which is U Science. We now have to start in 7th grade, so our 7th graders will start some more career exploration, and it gets more in-depth and hopefully more narrowed down for students as they move into their higher secondary years.
Can you tell us a little bit about you Science?
Kim will in a little bit.
Okay.
She'll hit it all.
All right, I'll just wait.
That's her.
All righty. Cool.
So how do we stay accountable? Because there's a lot of red tape with CTE. So one of the things we do is we're advertising and make sure what we're advertising is accurate. So we're advertising industry needs. We're making sure we're guaranteed and viable with our curriculum and working with our partners. We're reviewing our data to make sure we're advertising to the right subgroups of students, so we have an even number of traditional and non-traditional students in each class, and we do that in conjunction with our advisory board and our industry partners. Student access, our big push is equitability. So for example, we want to see more female students in boat building class. We're pretty even throughout most of our woodshop courses. Our culinary and our agriculture courses are pretty even. Our health science is pretty new, so I don't have that data yet. But we would like to see some more of our subgroup populations in some non-traditional roles. So we're going to be creating some marketing campaigns and strategies to address that. And to maintain safety, there's a lot of equipment that comes with CTE. So we make sure all of our teachers are trained, and then they are certified to train our students. Before any student is allowed to engage in any practices with industry equipment, they do have to pass a safety test with a 100% before they can set hands on those tools. And then we also work with our industry partners and our companies and kind of walk through our facilities and make sure they're all up to safe standards. So with our facilities, we try to upgrade all of our workstations every 3 to 5 years. So for me to do that well, I have our teachers turn in a budget at the end of the year for the following year with priority needs. So then that's how we create our 5-year replacement plan for necessary items in CTE classes. So for example, this year I know I'm replacing the fridge, freezer in the student store. That was a big one, so that helps me budget and allocate funds appropriately. So we just kind of do that at every advisory meeting, especially in the spring, so we're ready to go and we can get our ordering done for the summertime. Same things with our instructional materials. A lot of our curriculum is also online or hands-on engaging, so we work with our industry partners to see what's new and relevant for our students, and our academic partners and our core teachers to make sure that our academic standards are aligned, and we have kind of molded the two together. So for example, last year I came to you with the vote for that really fancy anatomage table. That was part of this plan, so that is up and running in our health science room.
Oh, cool.
And now we're working on a different grant to modernize our greenhouse and work on farm to table.
Cool.
A big part of CTE are what is called CTSOs, so Career and Technical Student Organizations. So you've heard of like FFA is kind of a common one. We're adding HOSA this year, so it's Healthcare Occupation Students of America.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a new one for me. So that is in conjunction with our health science department. We have Skills USA with our woodshop. Some ag can go in there too. We have DECA with business, and then at the middle school there's all TSA.
What's TSA?
Technology Student Association. So if you Google it, type in Technology Student Association,
Yes.
or you get the other one. And so our long-range planning, we're evaluating every single year with our partners. They play a big role in our planning with our teachers. So this year, our teachers will be having kind of their subgroup meetings or their pathway meetings with their advisory partners, so they can really dive deep and see where we can go in the next 5 years, and then we'll turn it in and vote at the end of the year. So our advisory committee, that is all of our teachers. We have our career counselor on there, and it's all of our industry partners, and then we try to get some representation from our local schools as well. So we have industry representation from Olympic College, West Sound Tech, and a lot of us share industry partners. So it really allows us to build a program and make sure our programs statewide are very similar. So the skills our kids leave North Mason with are the same types of skills that every other student who has had that training has. And lastly, our program of study. Our big goal is to increase our partnerships. That's a struggle for schools that are in smaller districts. So we're looking at combining partnerships with some of the other local schools in our area. And we're working really closely with West Sound Tech this year on a career and technical education night at North Mason High School, where we bring in our industry partners. We're really recruiting our 8th graders and their families to attend so they can see how they can start as a freshman, work through a pathway, gain industry recognized credentials, earn some dual credit through Olympic College or wherever else we are articulated, maybe leave us and go to West Sound Tech for part of their school day, and then can be hired as soon as they graduate with skills and they're earning a livable wage, a family supporting wage. So we really want to tap into that and show that to our families this year, and then make it a tradition that we're doing from here on out.
That's cool.
So work-based learning and work-site learning and credit for paid work. Those are a lot of different acronyms that sound the same, but they mean very different things. So right now our goal is to develop more work-based learning in the classroom. So that's work-life experiences that are simulated inside the walls of a classroom. So students working on that anatomage table, surgeons are training on those tables right now. So if they have a hard case, they plug that data in and they can kind of practice and troubleshoot problems they may have in the OR. So our kids are getting a lot more entry-level experience with that right now, but they can take it further. So they have that training in the classroom. That's a work-based learning activity, or even something as simple as a career research project. Work site learning is a job within their student's pathway where they are going to work and they are earning high school credit. So it is connected to their CTE pathway. It's part of their high school and beyond plan, and they earn 1/2 credit for every 180 hours.
What are some of our work site learning opportunities do we have in?
Let's see, we have kids all over the place, from Tacoma up through Port Townsend. Shipyard is a big one. I mean, and then we have some kids that are working at McDonald's, and that's connected to their pathway.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of marketing is the easier one to get. And we're working on building internship opportunities with some of our other partners as we move probably in the next year or two. And then credit for paid work is new, and we're getting more information as that comes. That is not connected to CTE, but I wanted to bring it up because there is a difference. That allows kids to earn elective credit for having a job in high school, as long as it is connected to financial literacy, so they can earn the same up to 2 credits, 1/2 credit for every 180 hours of work experience. Our program evaluations, again, we do those with our industry partners. Teachers sit down with them. It's a very lengthy document, and it basically goes through every part of our 5-year plan and asks how we're doing in our pathways. Are we serving the needs of our kids? Are all kids getting served in a safe way and learning the standards that we say we're going to teach them? And to do that, CTE offers a lot of professional development. So I would like to see each of our teachers attend the state conference at least once every 3 or 4 years, and then at least once a year their subject area conference, so they can get that professional development and networking, because that's how we're going to grow and build some of our supportive industry partners as well. I think that one is all the same.
Just your continued, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the same. So that is our 5-year plan of public. It's really long.
No, it's interesting.
John,
How long have you folks been in business?
for career and tech ed? Or,
What do you mean?
For how many years?
Oh, ancient time. We just learned about our
Do you mean how
conference.
long has North Mason had a CTE
How
program?
long has North Mason had the
Oh,
program?
as far as I know,
Yeah.
CTE has been around
Yeah.
in schools for a really long time. It was really strong in the 80s. And then kind of late 90s, early 2000s, there was a really big push for all kids to go to college. And not everyone finds success at college, and there's a lot of other ways to find success. So a lot of schools are bringing back strong CTE programs that allow all kids to be industry ready, whether they're going to go right to the workforce after high school or they're going to go to a 2 or 4-year college.
I get the impression that the steroids part of this happened within your watch.
I wish I could take credit, but it started getting popularity before my time here.
Well, I believe you have certainly evolved the program into what it is right now, offering so much more to so many different students than would have even considered a CTA pathway. So I applaud you for that. You've given kids opportunities that they didn't know existed.
Yes,
Yeah, and that's the challenge of CTE. How do we prepare and train students for careers that aren't in existence yet? And that's what we are trying to do. And that's what we're doing with our high school and beyond plan. That's what gives us the data to drive these programs. So that I'll let Kim take.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
So we are formally using Voice for high school and beyond planning, and we are now shifting into use science. And so with that being said, some of our students have already really had a deep dive into Voice, and so we're not going to take that away from those. So our graduating class of 2024 and 2025 we will be working with them to still use the Voice High School and Beyond Plan platform. And then from class of 2026 and beyond, we'll start using U Science this year. So U Science is fantastic. In the middle school, at the 7th grade level, we have about 3 platforms within that they'll be using for surveys about getting to know themselves, understanding their interests, and just really understanding what high school and beyond planning is. And then in the 8th grade, they will look at things whether they're interested in tech trade, college, and if so, how to explore that. And then the biggest one as the school counselor that I love is understanding how this applies to your course planning for the next 4 years. So exiting middle school and really understanding what high school is, what classes to choose, and how to navigate your pathways for the next 4 years. In the high school level, we decided it used to be done through our homeroom with our teachers minimally, and then we really had our English department dive in and support our college and career counselor, Mr. Mosby, with doing lessons inside of the English classroom. This year, we decided, because we're doing a new platform, we're going to be training each of our teachers at the high school level how to operate U Science, and we're going to break it up into subject levels that are required per grade. So for 9th grade this coming year, we'll be doing it in their freshman science course. 10th grade, they'll be doing it in their career choices course. 11th grade, their current world history. And then in English, we thought we would just keep it with English. 12th grade with English, because that's typically where they're doing their final resumes, prepping for their scholarship notebooks, things that really take a lot of writing and detail. So we decided to keep it with that. So Lexi is pulling up kind of how it looks. So when you log in, the greatest thing, we piloted this last year with 2 different teachers. We used it in one of our English courses and one with our career choices. And so this is actually Lexi's data. She did it herself.
Diagnostic problem solver.
Yeah. So the great thing about U Science is not only is it a platform for students and teachers to help plan their 4 years out, whether even with starting with 8th grade, but this is also being used as a tier 1 intervention. So if you are a student who just doesn't know how to communicate with their teacher, you don't really know what your learning styles are, this platform with all of your interest surveys, your task completions, all the things that you do to pull your data, it gives it all to you. And so then as a teacher, you'll be able to log in and see, okay, this kiddo is struggling, but they really learn better with hands-on motivation or things like that. So not only is it a planning tool and it's something that we can use to help each student complete their high school and beyond plan with fidelity, it's also going to be used as a tier 1 intervention resource for all of our students.
Wow. And can we take these?
You are, I think you're welcome. If you just need access, right? They can, like when you log in, like staff logs in, they can all do their own, correct? Yeah. So everyone, staff, students, you can all do it. And then once your results come back, you can see where Lexi is right now. It gives you the different results, and then you can star which ones that you truly, or heart, I think it is, which ones that you feel like you really resonate with, and then ones that you think you want to work on, things like that. And so the goal is that we will implement these within the first 2 trimesters each year. So then when we go to do registration for the next year, that they'll have all of their detailed information. So like right here, this is all the data, all like the fun different graphs and styles that pull up that kids can either print out, teachers can pull as full classrooms, we can pull in full grade level. And then the goal would be to use the pathways that are pulled from student data to help drive how we can support different pathways either growing or developing within North Mason.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get why it's called U Science now.
Yes.
That's
Totally
really
impressed.
cool.
What % of our students take advantage of this?
So this is actually very new. So we only had 2 sections last year. So it was within our career choices classes with one of our teachers, Mr. Hua, and then one of our teachers in the English department, Michelle Thornton. So I want to say it was like 35 kids each, I would say. So about 70 to 75 students last year piloted it. And then this year it will be across the board.
But starting with 7th grade.
Starting with 7th grade.
The 7th graders
Yep.
are doing it.
There is a 6th grade component, but it's more so just one thing that they would be doing very minimally one time a year, just to kind of explore what it even is.
But what about our current 8th, 9th how are they fitting into that picture? Do they do this or do they do the old one?
They do this. So the only grade levels that will be doing the old one are our current seniors and our current juniors because they've completed such large chunks of the previous one. To have them start
Right.
from 7th grade all the way up to their current grade would just be a lot
gotcha.
of back end duplication. So 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th will be explicitly use science this year.
Okay.
So if this has been around for a while, have we had any products out the other side?
I can speak to that. Our James Taylor and Homeling students used this last year as well. And one of the reasons I really like this platform is it offers industry recognized credential exams.
That's right.
So we had about 25, closer to 50 students take the 21st Century Skills Industry Recognized Credential Exam and receive that certificate.
There you go.
Wow.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
the testing here aligns to all of our pathways. So we are able to offer a minimum of one industry recognized credential in each one of our pathways, but students have the opportunity to earn significantly more.
And the goal.
Remember, one of the things we added to our 100% list for kids upon graduation is that now that we have this tool especially, we are going to expect 100% of our graduates to have at least one industry recognized
Yes, I do
credential
remember
upon
that.
graduation.
And the goal is hopefully that by the end of their sophomore year, if properly used with fidelity, starting in 8th grade with their course planning and mapping from 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade, the hope is that 100% of students will have their first pathway completed by the end of 10th grade, which would allow for the industry testing and or expansion to try other pathways their junior and senior year, whether it's at North Mason or in other things like Running Start or AP level and West Sound Tech, things such as that to allow for multiple different levels of credential.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Where have I been? I mean, I'm awake through all these meetings. It's like, this is something big. And it's a big advertising thing.
Yeah.
I used to get questions about, well, what are you doing for people that don't want to go, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just a tremendous structural piece.
Yeah.
With shiny statistics, or at least some coming down the road. Do you have anything to keep, look at when we have some famous people coming out of this, that are making big money, we ought to keep track of these people, stay
And
friends with
Our
them,
students actually have access to this platform 10 years after graduation.
That's correct.
remind them that we get 10%.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you both
Very
for that
awesome.
presentation.
Thank you
Very
so
cool.
much. It was a great presentation.
All right, we're at board development and linkage with our superintendent update and the budget status update.
And we'll start with budget.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Boy, tough act to follow with both our IT status report and our CTE and other reports that really inspire me, too. And it's for me, as the director of finance, assistant superintendent of finance and operations, to me, it's encouraging to see how we're using our resources, not only our tools and the programs, but also the talent we have here in North
Yes.
Mason. It's pretty remarkable. So I'm here to present on our budget as of August 31st, 2023. So in our other fund report, now we're seeing the entire fiscal year from last September 2022 through this past August. So there's the whole year there in our other funds. Our end fund balance in capital projects was $322,027. And our end fund balance in debt service was $1,800,046. The end fund balance in ASB was $449,929. And in transportation vehicle, $331,988. And you can see that increase there between July and August in the transportation vehicle fund because we received our transportation depreciation apportionment in our August apportionment. Now, I just want to, before we move on to attendance, just share that our Facilities Advisory Committee is getting ready to get back in gear and continue with the work on our multi-year planning tool. So we aim to complete that tool this year with our advisory committee. We're calendaring meetings, and we'll be notifying the meeting members here very soon on when those meeting dates are so we can complete that work. So we're excited about that.
By this year, you mean calendar year or school
This
year?
school year.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So looking at our attendance, so we're just looking at September. So on the left there, you can see our budgeted enrollment versus our actual, the budgeted in red. And on the far right is an average. So they're identical right now. Now the attendance here does not, in the graph, does not include our transition to kindergarten students. So, and also, just of note, I looked at last year's September and looked at the change between September and October. And last year's change between September and October was 134 students. So,
You mean down or up?
we had an increase of 134 FTE between last September and last October. So that gave me some encouragement too,
And we don't count Running Start until October, and we
Right.
already know that we have a significant number of students enrolled in those programs.
Absolutely. So,
Right.
so at the bottom, we have a summary, so you can see those numbers a little bit better. So our September enrollment, not including our TTK. Oh, Jackie, I don't know if this is the right one.
We have- I
So,
have it
so that number 2217, that does include our TTK. So if we took out the TTK, it'd be 2,189. So we do have 28 TTK students right now,
28
too.
is what you
So on this particular document, that does include the TTK. So the one I have in front of me, I separated them
Yeah,
out.
the one that's on the website is
That's right.
what you're reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to separate them out, because the TTK is a separate apportionment now. It's funded differently this school year. So that's why there we go. So you can see there, and the difference between our budgeted and September's enrollment is 132.79. So last year, the difference was 134 between September and October. Now, last year's October did include an increase because of TTK or TK students. So it's yet to be determined how it will look in October, but we're being optimistic. Let's go on to our general fund status report. Again, this is through August 31st. So beginning with our revenues, you can see on the top left that our total revenues year-to-date through August, we're at 100.47%. So we collected a little bit more than we had projected. Local sources were at 102.35%, state at 102.20%, and federal at 87.33%. Now, there will still be some federal funds coming in as I'm doing grant claims and federal grants.
Okay.
And those funds would be accrued back to 22-23 as we receive them. At the bottom here, looking at our state apportionment for August, it was $3,491,750. We received $22,443.64 in property taxes, and our investment earnings in August were $10,322.99. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So this shows our, there we go. So here we can see our total revenues, our budgeted, our projected, and our current. So the blue on the left is what we budgeted. We budgeted for 22-23, $40,093,741. As you can see on the bottom there. And Jack, if you could please, there we go. Our current year to date, as of August 31st, our revenues were $40,281,395. So you can see the difference there. We our revenues were higher by $187,654. So a little bit more than what we had projected or budgeted. So our revenues by source, here you can get a visual comparison, our local, state, and federal revenues. And the difference in the state, the current revenues versus projected, was a little higher, and then in the federal it was a little bit lower, but they kind of balance out because, as I shared with you in the last slide, that our total revenues were 100.47%. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is revenues by source with going back prior years. And you can see where there's in the state there's really been a significant increase over the last 3 years. With the local, that includes levy plus forest, state forest money, other fees collected, grants and donations, things like that, local funds. You can see on the bottom there, just as a comparison over the years, so if you look back to prior year to date 3, 2019-20, our local at the end of August was $4,903,683. Compared to this past August, you can see the difference there, $715,704. So our local revenues are less now, $715,000, almost $716, less than they were back in 2019. Now, a big reason why is because the difference in the levy. Our levy is a smaller levy collection than it was back then. If you look at the federal, going back to that, you can see the change there over the last 4 years. A lot of those federal dollars there, that increase was due to the pandemic relief to the ESSER funds, and those ESSER funds are almost completely diminished. We do have a small amount of funds left in ESSER that we have this current fiscal year 23-24 to spend. And let's move on to the next slide, please. We're looking at the expenditures. So our projected year-end balance as a percentage of our budgeted expenditures at the end of August was at 10.56%. Our total expenditures actual year-to-date were at 95.84%. Our salaries and benefits actual were at 100.34%. And on the top right, you can see our basic ed actual year-to-date was at 89.79. And let's go on to the next slide, please. And here you can see our total expenditures budgeted, projected, year-to-date, and current year-to-date. And at the bottom, I've kind of summarized it. You can see our current year-to-date expenditures were at $39,576,033. We had budgeted that we would have expended through 2023 $40,952,949. So we spent less than we had budgeted. But I do want to mention that as cautious and wise consumers and budgeters and users of our resources, we build in a little capacity there. That way we don't want to overspend what we budget. So it's normal and typical to budget a little more than you might actually spend. So it's not completely surprising at all that we have this amount of money that we didn't spend. That's what I'm trying to say. Think about it like this. If you're planning a vacation, you know what your flight's going to cost. You know what your hotel's going to cost. You can just pay those up front, right? You know what your rental car is going to cost. But those other things, your meals, your souvenirs, and your activities, you can kind of plan and kind of have an idea what you're going to need for those. You might set a little bit extra aside just in case. And if you don't use it, then that's great. And it's kind of the same concept here with planning a budget. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Expenditures by object. So you can see our projected year-to-date versus current year-to-date. And we're pretty close on all of these. The purchase services, you can see there were more expenditures in that area. And we've discussed this in past meetings, and some of the reasons why the purchase services were more. Let's go on to expenditures by object. And here you can see over a 3-year period, 4 years, salaries that you can see that increase for certificated and classified benefits as well. Pretty much across the board, and as you can expect, that there are increases over time because of inflation and different levels of funding that we've received from the state for salaries and et cetera. Now, one thing of note here is you can see that prior year to date 3, in yellow I believe it is, the one on the far left, that's going to drop off next month. And we'll see a new year because we're only going back 3 years. So prior years 2 and prior year 1 were during the pandemic. So those definitely did affect our trend over the years. Let's go on to the next slide, please. This one has our end balance. You can see that over across the year, how our fund balance has changed. That's the thick, solid line there. Our August end fund balance was $4,360,885, and I summarize it at the bottom. There we go. So you can see our budgeted 22-23 year-end fund balance was $3,244,558, and you can see that difference there. And I talked about this last month when I shared the budget for 23-24, that we were expecting to have a higher fund balance than what we budgeted. So what we planned for is our 23-24 beginning fund balance was $4,284,069, and you can see it's at $4,368,885. So I was off by $76,816, but had zeroed it in pretty closely. And now the last page is our summary. And you can see on the right our current year-to-date revenues at $40,281,000 plus. And we had budgeted $40,093,741. And you can see the percentage, 100.47% there on the right for revenues. Our total expenditures, you can see that we're at 96.64% of what we budgeted, so a little under. And our year-end fund balance at the end of August was $4,360,885, which is at the very bottom. If you can scroll down just a little, please. That bottom figure there on the in the right table in the bottom, that shows our fund balance once again. And that concludes the budget status report.
Thank
Good
you
job.
so much.
Good job, Dan.
Thank you so
Are
much.
there any questions?
I have none.
Would some of this be due to prudent management?
Well, you think?
Well, I would like to say a lot of it has to do with my predecessor, Viet Moy, and the work she did with the ESD to plan a budget. But then managing it through the year, the business office, myself, the superintendent, and our directors, we all work together to be very careful with our funding and to use it in strategic ways and to not overspend our funds. But also we want to make sure that we're doing the right things with our money. It's our public, public trusts us with that. We're not in the business of, we're not a business like that makes a profit. We're not in the business of making and saving all this money. We're in the business of taking the funds that we're given by the public and using it very carefully and strategically to get good outcomes for kids. And that's why, like, when I come and talk to you after hearing reports from our CTE director, our IT director, and every month when we have different speakers, it just, for me, it just kind of helps me see the fruits of our labor, that we are doing good things with our resources.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Great.
Cut, that goes in the ad.
The first thing I want to do in the rest of the teaching and learning update is highlight some partnerships. And I included in the board packet a letter kind of providing a summary from InvestEd. InvestEd is an organization you'll remember as early as 9 or 10 years ago as the Saul Haas Fund. And InvestEd provides support to students and their families in need for things that school district funds normally can't be spent on to support. And each year they send us a report that tells us how much we've requested and received. And as you can see, we had some money left over from the previous year that we spent to total out our expenditures last year, and how many students within the district were able to benefit from that. So they are a really strong partner. Even though it's not a huge amount of money, it fills some very important needs for kids and their families. And really, the amount you received is based on what you need and what you request and work through with the organization. So they are a great partner.
What are the types of things that?
It can be things like equipment for sports, or it can be things like the family needs a front door in a house, different things like that we can help. It can help with anything the family needs so their student will have what they need to come to school and participate and be safe.
Does the school district apply for it, or the families have to, like?
We do.
You do?
Usually through the counselors.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yeah. So it's very cool. Another partnership that I'm really excited about that just kind of came to be in the last couple of days that you will see an agreement probably on next month's consent agenda. You'll remember that last year we signed agreements with 5 of the 6 state schools to guarantee admission for our students if they met some minimal requirements. We were contacted this week, and we are in the process of signing an agreement with PLU that not only guarantees our students who have a 3.3 grade point average and are in the second part of Algebra 2 at least, admittance, but also guarantees a scholarship for our students.
Wow.
And then different levels based on student needs. So that's very, very exciting, and I'm really excited that they decided to include us. They used to call this the 253 project, and it was only for kids who lived within the 253 area code. So they're including us now. So we're very, very excited. So from that, I included the district improvement plan, the whole plan in the packet, but I'm just going to focus on the PowerPoint slides, Jackie, that summarize kind of, remember we said that this year what we're going to do when we talk about our plan and 100% is spread it out over 4 months. So we're going to talk a little bit about one area of the plan tonight, and Lexi's going to give us some examples from her school. And then next month, tonight, we're going to talk about attendance. And then next month, we will talk about the academic areas of the plan and have other principals here as well. Okay. So go ahead and keep.
I didn't make a slide for this because it's just boring numbers. So we have 2 different plans. We have our HomeLink side of alternative learning plan, and then we have our James Taylor side, and that includes both our daytime program and our evening program. So for our HomeLink side, our goal for both of our schools is 100% of students are attending 90% of their school days or more. So what we do to manage that is a little bit different on each side. So for our HomeLink side, we track attendance by our students doing about 28 hours of schoolwork per week, and they have to have weekly two-way communication with their mentor teacher. And I always tell the students it needs to be more than proof of life. It has to be more than, hi, how are you? I'm fine. Like some sort of academic conversation, even if it's only 2 minutes. If a student misses their weekly contact, in the world of ALE, it's 5 missed days of school.
Wow.
So our kids learn really quickly on that side when we start sending attendance letters home. So when they miss their first weekly contact, we send out an attendance letter with a reminder of our expectations and that it counts as 5 missed days of school.
Wow.
The second one is 10 days of school, and they have to come in for a meeting with our counselor, with their guardian and their teacher to troubleshoot. Maybe we need a different day. Maybe it's a change of program. We try to troubleshoot that at that meeting. The third time, it's 15 days of school. We send them to truancy board, and they meet with their counselor, their IEP 504 team, parent or guardian, and myself. And we're trying to troubleshoot those barriers before we get to truancy board so we can go to the board with that family with a supportive solution. And if that still doesn't work, we're really talking about a change of academic placement because we're not doing them a service if they're not learning that way.
Yeah.
So that's how we manage it there. Last year, we finished with 95% of our homeling students attending school 90% of the time.
Wow.
James Taylor is a different story. We still have the same attendance goals, but sometimes just the barriers being in the building. So last year we were at 14% attending 90% of the time. So we are working on creating different support systems. If they miss their first day, they get the robocall. If they have missed 3 unexcused days, we're coming in for a meeting because our kids finish a class every 3 weeks. 3 unexcused days is a lot of school for them.
Yeah.
So we want to find a solution quickly so they're not falling further academically behind. So we bring them in for a meeting with their teacher and the counselor. The second meeting is teacher, counselor, IEP 504 support team, and myself. And that's at this day number 7. Then we do the same thing at 10 with, yes, we're at our meeting 10. We are referring you to truancy board. Let's again find a proactive solution before we get there. One of the things we have done to try to help prevent so much truancy is we added evening school last year, 2 days a week for 4 hours a day. I'm really excited to share that we're going 4 days a week starting Monday.
Oh, that's exciting.
So our students still have the ability to only be in person 2 days a week, but they have a little bit more choice. So we don't have the barrier of church or family obligations for our evening students or for work. We have some students that can only make it for 2 hours a day, so they come more days a week to make up those hours. And we have some really motivated students that are, I want to be there all 4 days, all 4 hours.
Oh.
So they are coming. So we're trying to find creative solutions to eliminate the attendance barrier because what we see in our world down at James Taylor is it's not always they don't want to come to school, but there's a barrier that prevents them to getting their foot in the door. So the more creative we can be to eliminate that, the more we'll see kids do successful things when they leave our doors.
Thank you, Lexi, for great examples.
Thank you, Lexi.
Yes, thank you.
So as you can see, our district goals are that 100% of our students will attend 95% regular attendance in each building. 3rd grade, and that is our attendance goal. So that's the one we're going to focus on today. We'll go on to the next slide. And what I included was a chart to show you kind of where we were in our buildings last year. And you can see that depending on the grade band, that we have different levels of attendance that overall for the whole year. And this is that attendance was taken at least twice a day. The students were there both of the times. So it's very, very specific. It's full day daily attendance, not part day daily attendance. And the high school had the lowest average so far. HomeLink, which is an fully online program, was the highest level. Elementary schools were closer. And so we have goals and areas to work on in all of our buildings. I thought that would be helpful for you to kind of see where we are. And then as you move forward, I took it from a chart looking at some data nationwide. So as you can imagine, if you're at school full-time, at least 90% of the time, the chances of you being successful and graduating are exponentially greater. And there is data and study after study after study that supports this. And this came from a very recent study, and I didn't copy all the states. I just made sure Washington got in the chart. But it was a ranking by state of districts that students who had missed at least 10% of the school year in 2018-19 versus 21-22, which kind of shows you some of the differences that happened in districts in states across the country pre-COVID and post-COVID. And if you look at Washington, we're right in the middle of the chart. And pre-COVID, we had about 15% of the students in the state who missed 10% or more of the school year. Post-COVID, we're at 33%. So when you flip back and look at our chart for our district last year, in some places we're doing much better than we are as a whole state, and in other places the work we have to do is not quite as great as you might think. So in the recent study by Creed et al., attendance is the most accurate known predictor of academic performance. It's not just common sense. We have lots of data to support that. If you are not there, your scores on standardized admission tools like the SAT, school GPA, study habits, study skills, all of those things fall, and your ability to be a successful high school student, a graduate, and go on to other things decreases. So that's why we are focusing so hard on attendance as a district. And what we will be doing, we're going to review the data the schools are reviewing them bi-weekly. They are looking at their data. They are making sure that kids are getting and families are getting all the calls, that we're setting up meetings, that we're being proactive, as Lexi talked about, so that we're addressing the problem before it gets so overwhelming that kids and families feel buried and don't feel like they can dig out of the hole. We're updating our systems. We have so much better ways to communicate now that we fixed a few glitches with Parent Square, and making sure that families can respond right away to reports of their students' absences, working on engaging those communication tools to help our families help their kids be at school, and then focusing on how do we have the conversations that we're talking about support and education and not about punishment. Yes, we have truancy board, and yes, sometimes there are some consequences, but our focus is on support and how do we solve the problems and address the barriers and get kids to school.
When the different schools are looking at this data and connecting with the families, I assume they're collecting the data on the why, and that's getting looked at.
Yeah, and so obviously we're just a couple weeks into the school year,
we'll get
and
looked
so we'll hear more about that. When we talked about putting together and talking about our goals differently this year, part of that was so we could explain them in more detail and give you some upfront data, and then starting in January, really come back with okay, this is what we're seeing so far, so that you have a real accurate picture of what we're doing, and it's not just a once a year we talk about goals.
Right.
So I'm really excited about the work that our teams are doing, and Chris and Kyle are working very closely with the principals and with their teams. We've added a staff member who's helping focus and track the supports for student attendance that works out of Chris's office, and she's working closely with each of the schools to ensure that they have the tools they need to help the schools help the kids be at school.
Yeah, I would be so curious to know, what they hear back from families, or what they are, assessing and seeing as to why certain students might
just
not be
like
coming to
everything
school.
else, every student is different.
Yeah.
But there are lots of barriers for kids. There might be transportation barriers. They are
Right.
not getting up early enough in time to meet their bus, and there's nobody to bring them. There might be other issues going on at home that are making them just really feel like they can't face school today. There are all so many things. There might be things that happened at school that they're frustrated about and they don't know how to deal with. So
For sure.
by having those individual conversations early and often, it's going to ensure that our schools are really focused on supporting families and kids on getting here and figuring out what the barriers are before they become buried under the stress of having missed so many days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is everybody doing this, or are we just way out ahead?
I'm going to let Chris answer that one.
So, great question, and the answer is yes. So we've spent a lot of time,
Refer to the last,
what?
Yes to
to
which
the
one?
latter part.
Is everybody doing
Okay.
it?
Is everybody doing this?
So when I assume that, is everybody in our district doing it?
Oh.
The
no,
answer
I'm in
is
other
yes.
schools. I mean,
In other schools, I'm sure they're focusing on attendance as well. We know point blank, if kids are in school, they're going to learn. And if they're going to learn, they're going to graduate. If they're not in school, they're not learning and they're not graduating. So we have to get them here. And so within the schools, we have a very clear system that We're working with all the attendance secretaries and principals that identify the kids aren't coming, what interventions are happening. It's very structured, and they get deeper as the kids, the kids don't show, we get more involved interventions to get them in school. And so it's systematic throughout the schools, so every kid is getting addressed. Nobody's going to drop through the cracks.
Great.
Does that make sense? So all schools across the state are obviously working on it. We're going to do it better.
Yeah, we are. Good for you.
Thank
I mean,
you.
we're really happy that Chris has joined our team this year. As you know, this is Chris Turner, our Director of Systems and Support. And he is taking an eagle-eyed look at all of our systems, like attendance, and helping ensure that we have the right things happening to support our kids and families. So thank you, Chris, for that work.
Awesome. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
It just seems to me there's a huge discrepancy between public attitudes toward the public schools and the reality of what I'm hearing about. I guess that's not a question, but I do have a suggestion. Why don't you people get together and write a book? I mean, an ad that is, it's very scholarly, but something addressed for the public that identifies what we're doing. And it seems to me it would sound like a private school. It would be the kind of thing that everybody would want to go to, and yet everybody pans. It is simply a knee-jerk reaction in this country that the failing public schools, the word is the failing public schools. That's the name of it. And it just seems to me we've got so much evidence and so many promising programs that are going, it's just a shame that the word isn't getting out.
I think a lot of people know, and that the vast majority feel the support. Vast majority of our kids are coming and graduating and learning.
Yeah.
But our world is also so complex, and so many things are affecting our students that may not have been there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it impacts. A lot of students are not coming because they need to go to work.
Yeah.
Their parents are undocumented. So how do we support those kids? We have families out there whose parents dropped out, who have a job. The kids see their parents as successful, so then they wonder, well, why do I need school? Mm-hmm. There's kids that start struggling early in 9th grade, and we don't recover them to help them to graduate. So we're focusing heavily in 9th grade to make sure they're successful. It's super complex, like our world is today. And but I do believe the vast majority of people believe in public schools, think we're doing a great job. It's just easier for people to be loud and complain when they don't like it than when they do. But
Very true. Thank you, Chris.
we are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
hope with you, and I think we can hope in that thing. I would like to hear more. This sounds just really great. I get too enthused. I'll shut up, but it's just great.
Well, thank you.
It is great. Thank you. So we're going to do the rest of the plan and the goals just throughout.
Month by month
Yeah,
through December.
perfect. Okay, tribal land acknowledgement.
Yeah, so this is in conjunction with the work we've been doing on our equity policy. And, it is important for us in North Mason School District, like in pretty much any organization and community across the country, and certainly in the state of Washington, to recognize and share our deep respect for the indigenous people whose land that we do business on. And this has been a really important project to me as we started, our work to get better at recognizing all of the parts of our community and our history. And so organizations like ours are being more responsible and more responsive to the history of the community by including a land acknowledgement in their meetings to share their respect for the Native peoples who came before. And when we started thinking about doing one for North Mason, we have wanted to be very careful, to be respectful, and to truly understand the history and make sure that what we said was the best that we could know about the history of the people who have come before and the indigenous people on whose land we live and work. And so we've been working for a while. We discussed, got some support with some historical background and stuff from the Skokomish, and really looked into some things. And we're still sharing our words with tribal leaders to get their take on what we want to say. But we used this acknowledgement at the opening of school. And I want to be really clear, it was a hard one to write because the North Mason School District and the district itself, the miles that we encompass where our families live, sits on land that was used by well over 100 different tribal communities and villages, and mostly Twana people who have become the Skokomish with the historic resettlement of people that was caused by the white settlers coming into the area. And the district itself, all of our buildings and everywhere that we have a school and that we do business is on historic Skokomish land, and so, or Twana land, which is why we have written that very specific language in our acknowledgement. However, I do want to be clear that parts of our district also, that Allen area, for example, encompass historically Squaxin land. But in trying to figure out how to best write this, we right now are deciding that we're focused on where our buildings sit and our facilities, and all of our facilities are on historic Twana lands. And so we came up with this, and I would like to ask the board to consider including this in the opening of our meetings going forward.
Yeah, if there's a motion, I would open it up for discussion after.
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept what is on the screen here as the opening statement. Did you say for every meeting? Mm-hmm. For every board meeting.
Thank you, John. I have some questions for discussion. So I heard you mention Skokomish. Was there a specific department or individual or consultants that we worked with on the language, or how did that process
We have
look?
shared the language. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting to hear some stuff back. But when we wrote something much different originally and shared it with a couple of different gentlemen at the tribe, including Tom Strong. And one of the people that we spoke to said, you really might want to read this book before you write something. Okay. And so I ordered the book, and I'm still reading it, but I've gone through a couple times. Book? It is a book that was written actually in the early 1960s when there were still pre-white people that were in the community and in the area and that could talk to a historian from the University of Washington, I think. So it is a history of the peoples of this region, and it includes demographics, where villages and settlements were located, what people did in those villages, what jobs, what were the things that were typically the foods and the customs, and it's a very in-depth, I can't remember the title, but It's on my table in there.
I'll take a look at it later.
It's a really interesting, really wonderful book, and it was really helpful because not only does it describe exactly where all of these various settlements were, as best as people could remember who were still around that knew about them in the early 60s, it creates a map that shows very clearly that the Twana people had homes from throughout the Hood Canal region, all the way up as far as where the Hood Canal Bridge sits today, and all the way south, almost to Shelton, but on the Hood Canal side. And so it was really helpful and helped us really rethink about how we wrote what we said, and it came away, moved much further away from the generic kind of statement that you'll see many of the school districts and other organizations using, that because many of those statements are kind of broad and throw in kind of a peppering of a lot of different tribal groups. And this one, because we have this information, we're really focusing on the Twana peoples who became the Skokomish, because the Skokomish was one of the largest of those settlement groups, but there were many, many, many groups. Another large one sat on the land that is where Belfair State Park sits now. And so that's why we got to this language.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to be sure that, we're not writing this in a vacuum, right? That we're actually sharing it with, and who, when you say we, do you mean yourself and other administrators or who?
Mainly myself.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was important to me too. And when I talked to my other colleagues, that was one of the things that made us take so long to have something is in a lot of other school districts, they wrote it. And they did research, but they wrote something. And I wanted to make sure that we'd tried at least to have conversations and engage about, does this make sense to you? So we have shared it via email with different folks. And I spoke to via email to Tom Strong earlier this fall, and he's going to get somebody to get back to me. So this is still a draft and could change a little bit, but I think it's really important that we don't put this off too much longer, because I think it's important to do.
And Tom is the CEO of the Skokomish tribe, for those who don't know.
I would just like to ask if it wouldn't be better, I'm sorry, if this wasn't in the form of a resolution
Oh, that we
read at the beginning of every.
Yeah, one of my questions was kind of what would it actually look like in the context of our meetings, and like we would read this whole thing, or it would just be printed at the top, or we call attention to it but don't read it all.
So typically it is read aloud at the beginning of meetings, like probably immediately following the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, by the chair or president of the board.
I believe the Puyallup School District does that.
I believe.
Also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other places do just pull it up on the screen and
Or just
say,
have
we
it,
want,
like, up.
this is, say, have a statement about, we want to acknowledge that we sit on the hereditary lands of the Toana people, and don't read the whole thing, but make it available. So I think that ideally we would include it as a statement at the beginning of the meetings, and I think it makes a really good sense that we maybe come back in October with a resolution that we do this. And
Well, that actually says, whereas the North Mason School District exists on Indigenous and so forth. I mean, it
I
would
like
be.
that suggestion.
It would be, I think, more,
Official.
yes, thank you.
Are there other government agencies in Mason County or school districts in Mason County that have?
there are other school districts that are using them.
Hood Canal, I probably assume so.
Good canal.
Do you know if Mason County, or I'm just curious, or the
I
city
don't
of
know
Shelton?
if Mason County is using one. I know most of the other districts in our region and in the Puget Sound region are already using them.
School districts, yeah.
Yeah, school districts.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
John?
The regional headquarters of, the regional flagship of international organization I belong to reads this at the beginning of every one of their public meetings. And that one goes, we recognize, something to the effect, we recognize that we are located on the land of the Duwamish people, and that, with some more things on that, they are still here and we value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, something like that. They've been doing this for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
And I think
been
it'd
exposed
be
to it.
really simple to put this into resolution language that could be read at the beginning of the meeting, because it's a statement now.
Yeah,
This is
I would imagine that this
now
is
we're
also a
making
work
this
in
statement,
progress,
whereas
that it could
this
be-
and this and this, and therefore North Mason School District strives to serve the whole child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a great suggestion. Any other comments? Any other
No,
discussion?
do we need to take action on this tonight, just to say,
I would
okay,
like-
move
Yeah,
on?
John made a motion.
Okay, okay.
So, any other discussion?
No, so is that, if
So
we go
when-
down that road, then we just bring it back next month?
Do we still need to have a vote?
Or do we just
let
table it?
go?
I
And
think
then
you
come
just
back.
table it and we come
Okay.
back in October with
Okay.
it in resolution form.
Okay, so we will go ahead and table
I really
this
like that, though.
discussion for next month.
Thank you.
Okay, upcoming board letter columnists. This month is myself. I need to get on that. Next month is Eric. We have John in November, last one, and Leanna for December. We are on the monitoring report, assurance of organizational performance and policy review portion of our evening. One of the monitoring reports we had before us was ER6 on facilities. Monitoring report was included in our board packets. Do I hear a motion to recommend that the board find the superintendent's performance to comply with ER6?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? I had one question about, is this the one that mentioned the facilities and asset plan? Or was that the next one?
You know, this was facilities.
They both mentioned it, sort of.
I think I'm thinking of the asset protection
Yeah.
one. Okay, then no, I don't have any
So I
comments on
thought
this
we
one.
were,
So there is a
Was it this
motion. Do you have any?
I moved.
Okay.
Do you want me to say the whole thing?
no. you're-
No, sorry,
Oh.
Eric, were you saying something?
No, it was
Okay.
the next one.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, motion carries. And then we have E7, ER7, asset protection. Do I hear a motion that the administration, that the board find the superintendent's performance to comply with ER7?
Madam Chairman, I move that we find the superintendent's performance conforms with ER7.
Any discussion?
I look forward to the meeting that will, our presentation later this year.
Yes.
On talk about the facilities and the facilities ongoing, the results of the committee.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that we completed the site survey work that is necessary to fill out that, that plan more fully and make it, have all the pieces that we need to have in place, both for the board to feel comfortable with where we are going with our facilities as far as maintenance and with new things in the future, but also to set us up for when we need to have the discussions about, do we need new buildings and what is that going to look like? So we have that information now, and that will be in the hands of the committee at their next meeting, and
Yeah.
they will be able to synthesize all of that information and bring some recommendations to the board.
Did you say next meening?
At their next
Their
meeting.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
not your meeting.
Right.
No.
My question was, when do you think we would see the, when will we see the facilities and asset protection plan?
By the end of the school year. That's what
Okay.
Dan was talking about
Okay.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had picked up on that.
I would just like to make the comment that I think the superintendent has done a marvelous job not recklessly exposing the district, its board, or staff to legal liability, or knowingly or recklessly endangering the district's public image or credibility, thereby jeopardizing the district's ability to accomplish its mission.
Hear, hear.
I think she has done a fabulous job interceding and doing the homework to make sure that it never gets to that point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Agreed. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? No? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. And now we are at policy review. Our last chance, or our, not last, and it's an opportunity to discuss, propose, or make revisions to policies that we reviewed last month. The board superintendent relationship policies, ER4 budget planning, ER3 treatment of parents, students, staff, and the public, and ER1 the expectations of our superintendent. Do we have any further discussion on any of those policies? All right, hearing none. We are at the adjournment portion. I'll start with good of the order, John.
Well, it's my good fortune to be associated with this organization, the progress of which we have all heard plenty of reports this evening. I am also privileged to be the chair of Mason Transit Authority, and there was a bit of news this last Tuesday that should make us all breathe more easily. We have switched our fuel to a fuel called R99 diesel. And in 2022, approximately, MTA, our buses used 100,000 gallons, and we produced approximately 3.0 million pounds of carbon emissions. Use of R99 produces an immediate reduction to about 1 million pounds, about 2 million pounds less carbon emissions by Mason Transit into Mason County environment annually.
That's great.
So we may all breathe more easily. Would that there were other organizations that would follow our good example.
Thank you, John. My only comment is Hendrix, my soon-to-be 5-year-old, started TK on the 11th of this month, so I'm finally a parent in the district, and it's been really interesting and really fun, and he's been having a great time, and I'm loving hearing him come home and just, navigating all of these different tools that you've mentioned, including like Stop Finder, and, that's been interesting to see play out and see in action. So, yeah. Cool. That's all. I'm done.
I have had the privilege of the past 2 days of watch our middle school softball team just be amazing. An amazing group of kids. It's been an absolute joy to go on with Jack and coach those girls. It's been absolute awesome. So really
cool.
appreciate the opportunity, and the girls are doing awesome. So
That's That's pretty cool.
It is.
Well, just so you two both know, the next few years are going to fly by so fast.
I'm
You
way
will
too
look
emotional
back and
about it.
wonder what happened. But being a parent and being on the school board is a really tricky thing to navigate, and it's hard not to, project your own personal feelings into the decisions that we make here on the board. So I congratulate both of you for kind of putting that out there, but still considering it in your decisions. So good luck to you both.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
And I just have a couple of things. One, I would like to ask the board, and Jackie will send out a follow-up to make sure, but I'm looking at a date to do a public conversation around the asset mapping, the assets that we have in the community and then in the district to meet the needs of our kids as part of our strategic planning conversation. And I am looking at Wednesday, October 25th. In the evening, there is not a district sports event at that time, other than there is a team meeting for the high school girls soccer team at that time, but not a game. And so I'm currently targeting that for a public conversation, and we would probably hold it in the Commons at Hawkins, and Jackie will send something out about that. And then I had a conversation with Nicole Timmons, who is running for Laura's position as Laura retires, and she's very excited about joining the board, and she is running unopposed. However, she has just recently taken on a new position, and her new position is similar to Jackie's. She's the assistant to the superintendent in another school district who also has meetings on Thursday nights. So
Third
I would
Thursday,
like
yeah.
the board to consider, when we next meet, the idea of moving our board meetings to either a different Thursday, because her board meetings are on the 1st and 3rd, so one of them does compete with ours, and just like Jackie, she's required to be there, or a different day of the week moving forward after the election process. So I want everybody to have time to think about it.
So starting in December, right?
Starting in December.
Well, and just for your information, our meetings used to be the 4th Thursday of every month.
Then it would get in, did it like conflict with like Thanksgiving and stuff, or why did
Well,
it switch?
once a year. They switched because we had a school board president at the time who wanted to switch.
Okay.
So
So it's
that
nothing
was
written in stone, we can.
Yeah, so it's, no, No, I think it's probably in one of our policies, the day that we meet, but I don't think that it's anything that can't be changed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think we can talk about it more.
So we'll look for the policy and make recommended language change and kind of leave it blank so we can talk about what day might be best,
Yeah.
so that you all have time to think about that.
So do you think we would discuss it as a group next month?
Yes.
Okay, with Leanna?
Yes.
Hopefully, okay. Yeah, okay, board self-assessment, Director Campbell, it's your turn.
Okay, we have general meeting behavior. I think most of you are familiar with this. I won't read it all, but it has to do with items such as the agenda was well planned, focus on the real work of the board. We weren't sidetracked. As far as I could see, everybody was prepared for the meeting. Our decisions and deliberations and decisions were public. It seems to me everybody had a chance to participate. And I think our work was conducted in an atmosphere of trust and openness, and certainly everybody treated each other with respect and courtesy. And as for us following our governance principles, as you can see, the way we voted on policies this evening, we were mindful of those. So I would give us a satisfactory evaluation.
Thank you, John.
Very good.
All right, at this moment in time, we have an executive session in accordance with RCW 4230-110. The board will adjourn into executive session for approximately 30 minutes for the purpose of discussing with legal counsel potential litigation. And I will recuse myself from this discussion for conflict of interest. And they will be back here at 8:16, so at about 8:46, 8:45. We'll see you back in this to adjourn. Thank you.